Siguiente.
You have to draw what I drew, but you have to.
All right, so in this video, I'm going to be showing you guys a Mayan lesson that I did with my students today. The original version of this can be found on mrrowan.com, which is more like a worksheet version. This version that you're going to see here, you can find in the description of this YouTube video. So it starts off basically with talking about the Mayan writing system and the glyphs that they would create, and basically explaining how the way that the words originally started is basically a picture of that word, right? It looked very much like the thing that the word is meant to represent. So, for example, the last one here looks like a jaguar, right? So, at the end of this first part, I basically explained that how this one looks like a baby, right? So, the way I started though is actually by having them take an educated guess. I tell them, okay, which one? What do you guys think the first one is? And then they take a guess, whatever. And the answers are down here, right? So the first one's tree, is really hard to get. Then shield, then warrior, and then this one's a baby. And I tell them, look, it actually looks like a baby, right? The last one looks like a jaguar. And I tell them again how those glyphs were, the words really look like the thing that they were trying to have meaning for. Then I do the next part. Okay, so I have them get into groups of 6, and there can be different variations in terms of the numbers, but I think 6 is a good number. So what I have them do is create a glyph for the word education. Okay, so for the word education, so what they do is together, real quick, I give them a minute or two to create basically a picture for the word education. That's what I tell them. Basically, these glyphs were like pictures, right? Originally, at least. Okay, so they take their time. I tell them, okay, make sure you put in a lot of detail. I go around, and that's the key part. Make sure they have a lot of detail. Next part of this is basically, now I tell them, okay, now each of you guys are going to take a turn to copy that glyph, right? So for the first one, I give them a minute. So they copy over that original glyph, give them a minute, then 50 seconds, then 40 seconds, all the way until it gets to 10 seconds. Then I tell them, look at the difference, and it's really fun. This is the fun part of the lesson, right? They get really into it, trying to hurry up and trying to copy it. And then I tell them to compare the very first one to the last one and what they notice to be different. And of course, there is a lot less detail in the last one just because of time, right? Because of how little time they had. Then I explained to them how basically that's what started happening with these glyphs, and the reason why some of these glyphs look nothing like the word they're meant to represent, because with time, some of these glyphs were too complicated to copy over, right, in great detail. So over time, the detail in those glyphs became less and less, and that's how you have some words in the Mayan language that look nothing like the actual word they're trying to represent, right? So that's part 1, or part 2, however you want to organize it. So the next part here basically deals with Mayan gods. So what I have them do is I show them a picture of the Mayan god, and basically they have to try to take an educated guess as to what that god that they're seeing is the god of, right? So I tell them to write a sentence explaining why they think that, right? So they write, oh, I think it's the god of wind, and I think that because, and then they explain why, right? So this first one, for example, is a god of creation. They could say, oh, it's a god of creation because it looks like he has a bowl and, there's smoke coming out, so maybe he just created something. Now, with this first period that I had right now, I gave them the options, but I feel like it was too easy. So I found some new pictures of it, and I feel like they were a little too easy. So I think for the other ones, I'm not going to give them the options. So that's obviously up to you. I think it's a little too easy if you give them the options. So maybe just showing them the picture, right? That's why I added an animation here. So when it actually plays, it doesn't show up. The options don't show up. But if you feel like it's a little too hard for them or they're struggling with it, then you can give them the options, right? So they write a sentence essentially for each one, taking an educated guess and telling you, what they think that God is of, right? So then the next part is you tell them to think about things that they really like, maybe hobbies and such, and draw themselves as ancient Mayan god, right? So what would you be the god of? So for example, I told them, oh, I would be like the god of soccer, right? And draw myself as basically in the style of the Mayan gods. So for the next part, it's really simple. I made a little rap song for my students about the Mayans. So they just watch the video, the little song, and then they answer the questions here. So it's really quick, really fun, especially the part where they're creating their own glyph and then have to recopy it. That part is very, very fun for the students. So yeah, give it a try, see how it goes.